I've been thinking of this moment where I would stood in front of you for a while now. And I've been wondering what I would do, what I would say on the first Shabbat of my returning to Seattle. And my mind has gone, my heart has gone between wanting to speak to the universal, but also needing to address the particular. Between wanting to stay and sit with an open heart in the absolute, and yet having to wrestle with the relative at the same time. I felt myself and my heart and my soul wanting to share with you in the beautiful expansion that I have met through this few months, and also feeling the yearning to share into the contraction that the world has also invited me into these months. So I want to speak to the particular, I want to speak to the relative, I want to speak to the contraction, but I want to hold the absolute, and I want to hold the heart of the expansiveness, and I want to hold the language of the universal, because they're not opposite of each other. They appear within one another. Being back here is, in a way, like returning to that old house you know so well, and you've missed through your travels. But at the same time, I'm keenly aware that though the house may look identical on the outside, this is a very, very, very different house, because the world I left on October 7th doesn't exist anymore. So much was lost on that fateful day. Too many lives, for sure, were so brutally taken. But also what was lost is a sense of security. What was lost is a sense of belonging. What was lost, perhaps, was the illusion here at home that anti-Semitism was a thing of the past, or barely only survived in the far-right corners of fringe minorities in the darkest chat rooms of the internet. But on that day, and the days that followed, and maybe the days since, we have felt the feeling that Jews felt all the time prior to the creation of the State of Israel. And that is vulnerable. And Israelis felt it too. They saw in the massacre of October 7th a glimpse of what could be their future. They felt abandoned by the so-believed formidable army meant to defend them. They felt that the fortress their ancestors had rebuilt in their land to never again live through the pogroms or the threat of another Holocaust, that fortress had been breached, and suddenly it was all possible again. They too have felt, and since that day still are feeling, deeply vulnerable. Which is why no one is thinking about peace in Israel right now. Why they won't be able to sleep again until the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad are, if not eradicated, at least reduced to irrelevance. Why they have no choice but to go after the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, who has already dug tunnels and is 10 times superior a force than Hamas and the Islamic Jihad combined. For them, these are literally existential threats. For us, here at home, the explosion of rageful anti-Semitism on the progressive left could also, in time, become an existential threat. We have seen firsthand now where the woke ideology and the progressive movement leads to. The calls for the genocide of Jews and the destruction of the state of Israel from the river to the sea by all means necessary. The same groups that decried the horrors of microaggressions not so long ago can't cheer loud enough the absolute butchering of civilians. The same leaders of the Me Too movement remaining silent in the face of the brutal rape and mutilations of women and girls' bodies. The leaders of the most prominent universities unable to simply say that calling for the genocide of Jews on their campus goes against the moral code of their institutions. Perhaps because the shadow of the woke movement is the loss of all things ethical, of morality, when everything has become so fluid. To respond to the question with "it depends on context" means that we have reached a point where new generations of Americans are taught to be ethically fluid, morally fluid, to go with the cause célèbre of the moment as long as it perpetuates the oppressors versus oppressed woke ideology. But what we saw on October 7th, make no mistake, is the embodiment of pure evil, only heightened by the fact that it was purposefully live broadcast by the perpetrators. What we saw seemed worse to me than all the stories that I have read about the Einsatzgruppen of World War II. Pure evil. There are no other words. And yet what followed in the Western world were cheers and demonstrations in all major cities calling for more, long before Israel had even mounted any kind of retaliation or any kind of attack. Long before the blood of our children, our elderly, our mothers and fathers had even dried in the sand of their kibbutz. Many have offered theory as to why those demonstrations and those calls for our death were happening. And I have appreciated reading the many articles covering these outbursts of this new form of violent anti-Semitism, renamed anti-Zionism, which fools none of us. As a student of anti-Semitism myself, I have found that it most often erupts in its most violent forms when a civilization reaches a time of identity crisis. A radical change is happening, a time of transition into a different future that is erasing the known but hasn't yet shaped the unknown. And we are in such a moment right now in the unfolding of our civilization. The last time this happened, the Western world is at that junction once again, fueled in part by technological advances running too fast and too far ahead of us, and the coming cataclysm of climate change. There is a dissolving of a future for the youth of this generation. The last time this happened was with the dawn of modernity and the great urbanization of the 1800s. And it only took a few decades into that radical transition to see anti-Semitism grow and the Jew to become once again the personification of all modern evils. It led ultimately to the gas chambers. The Jew of today is Israel. Anti-Semitism today is anti-Zionism. Only this time, with the current technology, it won't take decades for the cancer of hatred to grow. It will happen much faster. It also won't need the apparatus of the state or a new set of Nuremberg laws to quickly exclude and marginalize Jews from society. It will happen through our cancel culture and social media. Already we are seeing Jewish professors being forced out of universities, harassed by their students, and undefended by their dean. History brings us Jews the same three possible answers to anti-Semitism dressed in the garb of anti-Zionism today: hide, fight, leave. I don't think we are at the point yet when we must pack our bags and cross the oceans to find refuge in Israel. But if history is any teacher, and I'm a student of history, especially of Jewish history, we know that neither hiding nor fighting has ever helped. But yes, we can hide. We can hide. We can work to deny our Jewishness, decide to not make waves or rock the boat any further, not contribute or add fuel to the hatred by keeping quiet. We can mold ourselves into whatever our detractors want us to mold ourselves and become invisible. We can even embrace the anti-Zionist ideology ourselves, find ourselves siding with our slanderers, our attackers, tell ourselves, as they told us, that we deserved the violence perpetrated on our people on October 7th. This is called, as far as I know, internalized oppression. Or we can fight. We can fight lishma for its own sake. We can stand up to the hatred and the racist anti-Semitism by being proudly Jewish, by knowing who we are and what we stand for, by living our life as full expressions of our Jewish identity without apologizing ever for who we are. I am a Zionist. I believe in the right and the necessity of the state of Israel to exist. I am a liberal, humanist, Zionist who believes in a two-state solution and the peaceful coexistence of both Israelis and Palestinians side by side within their own secured borders. I have heard for thousands of years these people from these other nations, these other religions, telling me who I'm supposed to be, what space I am allowed to take up, where I am supposed to live, how I am supposed to behave. Mostly, they have told me how I shall die off and disappear. For 2,000 years, they have insulted me, called for my genocide, told me I was the incarnation of evil, a plague upon humanity, a polluter of their blood. This isn't new. For thousands of years, they have killed me, massacred me, raped me, beheaded me, burned me alive, rounded me up, sent me to the gas chambers, and reduced my body to ashes in their crematoria. So I'll tell you this. I'm not going to beep anymore. I'm not going to listen to their hatred and their voices anymore. They have no power over me. They bear the blood of my people on their hands from generations of violence against me. They have no moral ground to stand and point a finger at me. They have no ethical bearing from which to shout when they are drenched in the shame of their ancestors. I am a proud Zionist, and I will defend my right to exist and to have a little piece of land I call home on this planet. When they accuse me of genocide, I will remind them of the genocides they perpetrated on my people, on African nations, on the Incas, on the Aztecs, on the Native Americans of this land. When they falsely accuse me of indiscriminately bombing innocent civilians, I will remind them of their carpet bombings of Tokyo, of Dresden. I will remind them of the civilians of Hiroshima and Nagasaki they had no qualms obliterating. I will debunk their anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist theories and of lies and calumny. I will relentlessly contest their false narrative and tell the truth, even if I scream into emptiness, because there is no reasoning with staunch believers in conspiracy theories. And I will start with us. I will start with us, with Bet Aleph, with you and me. I will be offering a course on the history of Zionism, starting a month from today. This will be free. This will be on Zoom, and this will be available to everyone who wants to learn. We, each of us, need to know what Zionism is, how it became, and how it led to the creation of the State of Israel in order to combat the lies, in order to stand our ground and speak from truth. There are very dark clouds on the horizon. History is repeating itself just 100 years apart. But if we aren't packing our bag yet, we together need to resist and stand against this racist hatred. As Jews, we have done that for other people when they were attacked. Now we have to do it for ourselves. And so from the book of Psalm, I pray that we may together go Michael el Chael, from strength to strength. Amen.